International law is supposed to stop wars, protect countries, and hold powerful nations accountable. But here's the uncomfortable truth. International law has never really been about justice. It's always been about power and who gets away with using it. This is the real history of international law, born in war, written by empires, and enforced selectively. Long before treaties and courts, there were understandings. Ancient civilizations, thousands of years ago, already knew one thing. If you want peace, you need rules, even for war. For example, African kingdoms negotiated borders and tribute. Asian empires exchanged envoys instead of armies. Islamic law developed sophisticated rules for combat, the protection of civilians, and diplomacy. And China's tributary system was essentially diplomacy backed by the threat of force. These weren't idealistic systems. They were practical. Don't kill the messenger. Respect treaties. Honor your agreements, or face the consequences. There were no courts, no judges. There was only reputation and retaliation. It was a fragile system, but it was a system nonetheless. The rules were based on mutual respect and, more importantly, mutual fear. This was the world before. International law had a name, a world governed by honor and the ever-present threat of revenge. It was raw, but it was a start. Modern international law didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was forged in the fires of European wars, wars that were soaked in blood and lasted for decades. A key moment came in 1648 with the Peace of Westphalia. This treaty ended the 30 Years' War and created a powerful, world-changing idea, the sovereign state. Each state controls its own territory. No outside interference. It sounds fair, right? Everyone is equal. Everyone minds their own business. But here's the plot twist. Europe didn't apply this rule to the rest of the world. While European states respected each other's sovereignty, at least on paper, they had a different standard for everyone else. Africa, Asia, the Americas? They were labeled uncivilized and therefore not protected by the law. Their sovereignty didn't count. This is the moment international law stopped being a universal principle and became an exclusive club. The rules were for members only, and Europe decided who got a membership card. So, colonization wasn't a lawless free-for-all. It was legally justified using the very tools of international law. European powers drafted treaties that were forced upon local leaders under duress, often with a gun pointed at their heads. They created so-called protectorates, which was a polite term for taking control. They framed their conquests as civilizing missions, a noble quest to bring progress to people they deemed backward. Legal language was twisted to legitimize the theft of land and resources on a massive scale. International law didn't stop the spread of empire. It dressed empire up in paperwork, giving it a veneer of legitimacy. It provided the legal framework for one of the greatest transfers of wealth and power in human history. And this established a core principle that still echoes today. If the powerful break the rules themselves might change. But if the weak break them, punishment is swift and certain. The law wasn't a shield for the vulnerable. It was a weapon for the strong. By the 20th century, this system had failed spectacularly. It led to 2 world wars, genocide, and destruction on a scale never seen before. International law had proven completely unable to prevent catastrophe. So, the world tried again. Out of the ashes of war came a flurry of rebranding. The League of Nations was created, but it failed. Then came its successor, the United Nations Hope 2.0. The Geneva Conventions were expanded to protect civilians and prisoners of war. A new concept, human rights law, emerged, suggesting that every person has inherent dignity and rights. For the first time, individuals, not just states, could be held responsible for their crimes. The Nuremberg trials, where Nazi leaders were prosecuted, cemented a powerful idea. Just following orders is not a defense. Leaders could no longer hide behind the shield of the state. It seemed like a new era was dawning, one where law might finally triumph over power. But there was a catch, a big one. On paper, international law today looks stronger than ever. We have the International Criminal Court, the UN Security Council, and a vast web of treaties covering everything from trade to war crimes. But in reality, the law still seems to bend around power. For some countries, an invasion or a violation of a treaty results in immediate sanctions and global condemnation. For others, it leads to a lengthy investigation or calls for dialogue. Some leaders face arrest warrants and trials for war crimes. Others just face tough questions at press conferences. There is no global police force to arrest a head of state. There's only global pressure, and that pressure simply doesn't affect everyone equally. A small, isolated nation will feel the full weight of international law, while a global superpower can often ignore it with few consequences. This creates a glaring double standard. So the hard truth is that international law is most powerful when it is used against those who can't resist it. So after all this, is international law completely useless? No, it's imperfect. It's political, and it's often hypocritical. But without it, we have nothing. Without these rules, there is only force, only the principle that might makes right. The law provides a standard, a language for justice, and a framework that even the most powerful nations feel the need to appeal to. The real question isn't whether international law works. It's about who gets to decide when it does. Is international law a genuine step toward global justice, or is it just a convenient legal mask for global power? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching.